Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ross's Corner. What you're going to get from me today is rather short because I don't want to interfere too much with your training by going into too much detail about this. I think at this stage, with 5 weeks to go until race day, you are well on course, I hope. You've done your qualifiers, you've gotten your seedings updated, and everything's looking good. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about this concept of tapering. Now, that's a word that if you've ever read a magazine that contains a training program, you'll see it, because everybody includes this period at the end of a training program called a taper. The question is, what is it? And the taper period is normally made up of the last 2 to 3 weeks before a race, where you bring the volume and the intensity of your training right down. And the idea is that you don't want to stand on that start line feeling the fatigue that comes as a result of training. So some of you might be heading out this weekend for your very last long run before the race, and you're pretty much carrying a cumulative effect of training in your legs. That's a good thing because it helps amplify the training effect, provided obviously you don't overdo it. But when you get to race day, you want to be standing there super fresh, raring to go, and for that reason, people include a taper. So let's just look very quickly at what you need to do and who needs to do it. So first of all, who needs to do the taper? I guess the way that I would explain this to you is that if your training has gone well and you have invested time and effort from, say, December last year, then in much the same way as you can invest money and it earns interest and the capital portion remains but grows and grows and grows as a result of interest, you have earned the right to drop the training level down and not lose fitness. So what you're entering now in the last 5 weeks is that period where you get to cash in all the savings that you've made from December by means of training. If you haven't done that, so let's say for example you started training a little bit later than you might have wanted to for various reasons, then it's important to understand that if you stopped 3 weeks before race day, you would actually be losing maybe a quarter of the possible training time. And the benefit that you get from being fresh and well rested is actually not as large as the benefit you'd get from doing another week, maybe 2 of training. So my advice to you is the following. If you have done at least 4 months worth of training building up to the race, and you're feeling fit and strong, and you've done the necessary long runs, then you can get away with a 3 to 4 week period where you slowly bring the volume and the intensity down. If you haven't, so in other words, if you started training in February, March, and this is probably relevant mostly to the half marathon runners, then you're better off training all the way to, say, a week and a half before race day before you start to ease off. So that's the first point around who needs to taper. Then the next point, which is obviously affected by who it is how you go about doing it. And the way to do it is not to go from 100 Ks a week and a long run of 40 Ks or 50 Ks down to 20 K a week, because then you just lose all the hard work that you've done. So my advice is to cut 3 weeks out from the race. In other words, we're now 5 weeks away, Saturday 5 weeks. Starting in the first week of April, you've got 3 weekends to go. What I would then do is to cut the length of that long run by 50% each week. So for example, if it's 50 K now, then it comes down to 25 and then 12 Ks. And at the same time, all the other runs that you do in the week must also be cut so that the cumulative training time drops a little bit as well. The intensity also needs to come down, although there you have to keep going at race pace because you don't want to unlearn the neurological and the muscular adaptations that you've learned. So if you're going out, for example, and running at 5 minutes a K once a week in a tempo run, you must keep doing that. It's just that you will reduce the volume elsewhere and the intensity elsewhere so that you feel a little bit sharper. So the key thing is to bring the volume down, but not too much, and to keep the intensity at race pace when you need to, but not to race all the time. So the taper is part, obviously, of the training programs that we provide through Old Mutual, World of Endurance, and the Two Oceans Coach. So those of you who are following that, you'll have a taper anyway, no need to worry. For the rest of you, don't overcomplicate your life. I think the most important thing is that you recognize that with 2 weeks to go, there's probably not a lot more that you can add to your training by doing more. But what you can do is you can take away by doing too much. So rather than trying to squeeze in those last sort of few kilometers and long runs of training, rather rest up and hit the start line fresh and ready to go. As I say, don't make it more difficult, don't make it too complicated. Just bring it down. If you feel hungry to run, if you feel enthusiastic and bounce in your legs, then you're in the right frame of mind for the race day. Good luck, and we'll chat again next week when we start looking at the specifics of the Two Oceans route.